Hello and welcome to this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. I'm your host Marcus, and today I'm here with Nick Christy, who's the founder and CEO of Cintep. And Cintep produces a shower that recycles water, but Nick will tell you more about that in a second. And they've had quite the roller coaster ride recently, all the way from building the prototype for the shower to successfully raising funds via crowdfunding, and to now winning over $500,000 in the Green Challenge 2011 this year. And we'll go through all of that in a second. But first of all, Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Marcus.
So this episode has actually been a long time coming. We started planning this about a year ago with Nick, but for the sake of starting, why don't we start right away right now? So first of all, let's get some background and a general introduction to you for our audience.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from the UK, but now living in Australia, and I'm a chartered accountant by trade, but quite an entrepreneurial one. And I started Cintep just under 3 years ago with my colleague Peter Bruin, who's an international award-winning designer. And Peter had basically designed a better, more efficient shower that still gives you the same amount of water and temperature at the shower head as your current shower, but uses 70% less water and 70% less energy to do so. And when I moved to Australia, which was about 4 years ago now, there was a very, very severe drought. And there were some very sort of strong water restrictions that people had to live by. One of those was that you had to have a very low flow shower head, and another was that you were supposed to voluntarily limit your showers to 4 minutes per day, which when you try and do that is actually quite difficult. And it was those two things that led me to look for a better design of shower, and that's how I found Peter.
Okay, how did you actually meet Peter? I assume that the process wasn't that straightforward, that you just went around looking for him and then stumbled on him. How did that go?
It wasn't, to be honest, much more complicated than that. The actual idea for a better shower literally came to me in the shower when I was trying to have a 4-minute shower and not succeeding, and thinking, there must be a better way than this. Current shower technology is more than 100 years old and hasn't really been developed. And I thought a lot of the water that you use in a shower is either not dirty at all or very barely dirty. And there must be ways to clean that up quite easily where you could reuse it instantly. So I started to think about how I would design a recycling shower. And very quickly I realized that as an accountant, I probably wasn't the best person to do that. And so I literally went to Google and started Googling recycling shower, efficient showers. And I think very, very quickly came across an article from 2005 on the BBC website, which was called Eco-Aware Shower Recycles Water. And this was an article about Peter Bruin and his design, and he'd won a Dyson Award for it and the British Standards Institution Environmental Design Award. And had been selected as a show project for the Royal College of Art design scheme, which was where he was studying. So I thought, well, if it's won a Dyson Award and it's won an RCA Award and the British Standards Institution Environmental Design Award, it's obviously, it's got some pedigree to it. So I rang up the Royal College of Art and said I'd like to speak to Peter. And they said, well, we can't just put you in touch with him. So I asked them to ring him and get him to ring me, which he did the next day. And we found out that his girlfriend's family lived very near me, and he was having lunch with them the next weekend. So we agreed to meet before that lunch and sat down for an hour or two and talked about the design, talked about what it would take financially and time-wise to take it from prototype to manufacturing. And that was something I felt that I could do. And that was the start of the discussions to form Cintep, that was 4 years ago, and it took us about a year to actually agree on how we were going to do things.
Okay, before we go any further, would you briefly talk about the shower a little bit, what it is like, and just introduce it to the audience?
Yeah, I think from a user's perspective, you really just need to think of it. Think of it like the shower that you have at the moment. The intention is to give you a product that doesn't feel any different and doesn't ask you to behave any differently. But with the technology that's included, which will basically be within the wall, we're doing a lot of clever things that reduce the water and energy consumption. I think the key things to explain is that the shower recycles shower water, but it starts every shower with 100% clean drinking water. So everyone's shower starts with completely clean water that you would be happy to drink out of the tap. The shower heats the water itself, and then when a shower starts, it recycles your shower water and only your shower water from the shower that you're in right now. So the only person that your shower water has touched when it is recycled is you, and it can never be more dirty than you were when you stepped into the shower. The way in which the recycling system works is that we have a small reservoir in the base of the shower, which basically will be around your feet, and that will hold around about a litre to a litre and a half of water. And it's literally like a bowl shape in the floor or your shower tray. And there's an inlet within that bowl, behind which there's a pump, and the pump sucks the water through the inlet and then pumps it around a recirculation circuit where we filter it in 3 different ways and heat pasteurize it and then send it back to the shower head. And the whole process of capture, 3 filtrations, heat pasteurization, back to shower head is about 25 seconds. So from your perspective, you don't see anything different other than the small reservoir between your feet. And you get the same shower you're having today, but the technology in the wall is allowing you to do that, but saving you 70% of your water consumption and 70% of your energy consumption.
Okay, so producing a shower is obviously quite different from making something like an online service or a website or something that a quote-unquote typical startup would make.
Yes.
So when you started looking at it 3-4 years ago, what did it look like ahead of you? And when you've actually gone through the process looking back, did it play out like you had planned at that point?
Well, absolutely not, because if it had played out the way we expected it to, we'd have been manufacturing and selling the product for over a year by now. And I think like any plan, you start out with your intentions and things never turn out the way you intend them to. I mean, when I sort of look back, when we started talking about this was 2007. And the world was a much happier and wealthier place in 2007 than it is now. And it's really taken us a year of discussion and 3 years, almost 3 years full-time work to get to where we are, which is we now have almost enough money to get to market. But I've sort of condensed it into a phrase for friends of mine when they ask me the question, you asked me, or how easy or how hard has it been? And I say, well, I started a company in a country that I'd never been to, in an industry I'd never worked in, making technology that's never been built before in the biggest financial crisis for 100 years. So it's been something of a challenge so far.
You came to GrowVC about something under 2 years ago. When we started talking, you were talking to investors in Australia about raising capital for the recycling shower. Can you talk a little bit about those discussions and some of the things that you went through at that time?
It's sort of difficult to look back and remember specific conversations. I think when we came to GrowVC, it was off the back of some fairly unsuccessful assistance from organizations intended to help startups. I'm not going to name them or say where they are, but you touched on it a little bit with your introduction when you said it's not the same as making software. And that is definitely a problem that we found, that because of the success of things like the iPhone, the iPad, Facebook, Google, Groupon, the startup world has become very much obsessed with the web and software and apps. And a lot of the tools and a lot of the mentality that exists towards assisting startups is very much geared towards software type startups. And we actually had a conversation with a technology incubator, and we were told that we couldn't join. When I asked why not, they said, you're not a technology company because you don't make software. And that's probably the most extreme example we've found. But it isn't the same as making software when you actually have to make physical things and you need space and you're using lots of power and water